Hello, wonderful listeners. If this is your first time stumbling across the Outdoor podcast, you are very welcome here. And if you are a regular listener, returning for our first episode of 2025, and welcome back. It's lovely to have you with us. I recorded this interview with Ben at the end of last year, so it was absolutely lovely to go back and edit it and just relive how much of a fantastic interview it was. Ben is funny and quick-witted and insightful, soulful, and I absolutely enjoyed interviewing him. A real dream of an interviewee. So I hope you enjoy the next wee while and listening to the wonderful insights of Ben Soto. Ben Soto is a transgender surfboard shaper based in Orange County, California, known for his unique approach to crafting boards that combine technical skill with artistic expression. His work stands out not only for its quality, but also for the love and intention he infuses into each piece, which he describes as both a science and an art. Ben's personal journey is deeply tied to his identity as a transgender man and his return to surfing after initially stepping away due to discomfort with traditional surf attire during adolescence. He credits the LGBTQI+ community in San Francisco for fostering the confidence that helped him reconnect with the sport. Ben views shaping as a spiritual practice inspired by the sacred traditions of surfing's Hawaiian roots. He strives to make surfing more inclusive and accessible, working to break barriers in the industry. Welcome, Ben.
Thank you. Hello.
Thank you so much for agreeing to come on and talk to me.
Thank you for having me. I appreciate it.
Before we get started with the questions, please let myself and the audience know your pronouns and how you identify as part of the LGBTQI+ community.
I use he, him pronouns, and I identify as a man or a trans man. I do know there's a difference between the two, and I like to be clear on what I am because I also understand that not everyone agrees with this. And if I want respect in my opinion, I'll give respect to people in theirs, and you can just go somewhere else, and I will go somewhere else, and then we'll both be happy. And so I like to try and be upfront with people, although sometimes it is hard a topic to jump into right away. I also like to not like it's the first thing I come off with, but if I feel like they're gonna be in my life, then I'll like divulge. Because otherwise, when you don't, there's these big gaps in people's history that you're like, oh, okay, you talk up to until you're about puberty, and then like Jesus, you disappear. And then whenever you transition, you kind of come back on the scene and you're like, hey, I'm this new person. And like there's this big like in the middle part that can be left out if you're not comfortable or you know because yeah, it's like how do you explain that gap in life with things, and the only way to do that is to be open with people and let them know that like I'm transgender or I'm this or that, whatever. And if I'm telling you I feel like you're worth being in my life because I need to fill in, to know who I am and how I got here. You got to fill in those gaps and stuff. So, yeah, that was a long answer for.
No, it's completely fine. We love long answers.
Awesome.
Um, so we'll start at the beginning. We'll start chronologically. You grew up in California in the 80s. What was
Yes.
that like?
I was fortunate enough to grow up in Orange County, California. So that was very much a blessing. Like, even though from a young age I knew I was trans and stuff, even though I didn't know what the word was, um, I knew that things weren't like aligned or right, whatever you want to, what terminology you want to use. But outside of that, my life was awesome. my dad was a cop and he worked in Irvine and stuff, and my mom made military flags for the Marine Corps and the Army and stuff like that. We went to a private Lutheran school. I did little league, like I was in swim in high school, and like we when we got our first cars, like my parents helped us restore these classic cars, like the best we could do at home, but like, paint them and all this stuff. Like when I wanted to go surfing, my dad would take me, or like me and a friend. So I have a very blessed life. Aside from gender dysphoria or gender identity stuff, like if I had been born not quote unquote normal, but once again aligned, my childhood would have been the shit. Like, I can't complain at all aside from like what the hell's going on with my body, like,
Mm,
in my mind and stuff like that. So I still live in the house I grew up in. I never had to worry about like, oh, am I gonna eat? When I came out, my parents were very supportive, and both sides of my family were very supportive, and they're still very supportive, even though like they are more conservative in beliefs. I, being their transgender kid, is still, they totally support me and like, help me with whatever I need, and they're totally here for me. And like I can't complain. Like God bless me very much with the life that he gave me.
mm. It's so wonderful to hear that your family were accepting. Like you've hinted that they're from a different side of the political spectrum, but just that ability to be a kind, loving human and accept your family. It's a very beautiful thing to have happen to you.
Yeah, no, they totally are. I know a lot of trans or queer or gay or lesbian or bisexual or people that are within this community. They don't have that at all. And I do. I'm very lucky too. So
No, it's great to hear. It's really, really lovely. Is
yeah.
there anything you'd like to share around the gender dysphoria you mentioned when you were growing up and you were um, going into puberty?
Oh man. Yeah, that part was kind of crazy because I've known since I was like 6. My first like memory is there was a guy here doing construction work. My parents were adding on to the house, and it was summertime. And I'm running around without a shirt, just shorts, and like, because I got nothing going on. I'm like 6. I'm running around, and stuff. And he goes, little girls shouldn't run around with their shirts off. And I was like, I'm not a little girl. And I fucking like turned around and like went right back into the house all pissed and stuff. And I grew up in a time during the 80s when there was none of this, like, oh, I can go on Instagram and type in transgender or watch stuff on YouTube. There was no influence in my life whatsoever. I went to a small Lutheran school. My parents are Republican conservative people. The only time you saw transgender people was when they were on Jerry Springer or being arrested on the TV show Cops. I listened to your one episode with Nikki Smith,
Oh, Nikki.
and she said the same thing. It was the same thing. Like, you don't grow, like when we were growing up, there wasn't this like everywhere. When you saw it, it wasn't a good, like, oh, yeah, you can totally succeed. You can go to Congress. You can run a business. You can, like, be a model or an actress. It's all you're a prostitute or you're like getting beat up on Jerry Springer because you lied to someone about who you were or whatever. And you come on this TV show and make fun of yourself and get booed at and stuff. So it wasn't like I was influenced in any way. And I would do things like in high school when I was really starting to question myself and stuff. I was like, oh, well, maybe I'm a lesbian and stuff. And I couldn't even call myself a lesbian. So I was like, no, that's not it. And then, like, you just do these different things. And it was my first girlfriend that had seen a special on Oprah about transgender kids. And she was like, I think you should watch this. And so, like, I watched it, and I'm like in my early 20s, maybe
Mm.
20, 21, something like that. And I watched it and I was like,
Wow.
Like the like just like when I tell people, it's just like mind
Yeah, the
blown. Like what
realization.
the yeah, especially in your 20s and stuff and everything like that. You know, it wasn't, and then it took me still like from hearing that like 9 more years to actually finally try start to transition. So I didn't, it wasn't just something I did on a whim because like it's a big deal,
Yeah.
to transition and do all that stuff because you have to tell people from your past, probably have to tell your people from the future at some point. It can it's like a big kind of thing. I'm sure coming out in any way, can be like that. So
Yeah,
uh
there's a saying that knocks around the internet quite a lot. It's like you don't come out once, you come out thousands of
oh yeah,
times. Yeah.
yeah. Like yeah, all the time, like I said, if you feel someone's worth being in, like I don't tell the person at the checkout stand, like, hey, what's up? I'm transgender, or or things like that. You just go in, live your life, do your thing. But people that you're like, I'm gonna have this person in my life as a friend or a relationship or a mentor or something like that. For them to fully know you, they have to fully know you, and you have to fill them in on things. Otherwise, maybe not so much with the younger generation because they get to, if they can, do it sooner now. So those gaps aren't as large. But if you're like me, you go from like 12 to 29, and then there's like, you know, stuff. Like I went to high school, but you may not fill in like, oh, I was on the girls' swim team, or, I didn't go to prom or dances because of this or that, whatever it may be. So, yeah, you do have to come out a lot. So you have to be strong, definitely. Each time's like the first time, the new time again and stuff, and so it can be a crazy experience. Yeah.
Nice we segue onto my next question because when you were saying that, I was like, God, it just makes me it makes me realize the importance of having the community around you that we do, those from our own community who have that lived experience. And you've spoken about the importance of community both in the surfing world and within the LGBTQI plus community and how they've supported you along your journey. Can you share how these communities have shaped who you are today?
Those communities shape me a lot, but just people in general shape me, because I'm not just in the queer community. I go out and I deal with a lot of people that I hang out with or know. Orange County has a very small, if kind of hidden gay community. It's very conservative here. And so it's not the same as like say San Diego or LA, where they really have like dedicated like West Hollywood, or in San Diego, I think it's called the Gas Lamp District or something like that. But they have like, or Hillcrest. I think in San Diego it's Hillcrest. They have like dedicated like communities like that where you go and you're in the gay neighborhood. Other than Laguna Beach, but even there, it's not like, woo, gay. You just know it as like that's where the older gay men would go because it's very beautiful and very nice there and stuff like that. But like, I think sometimes we have an OC Pride, but I'm not sure. So like it's not the same. So you'll have more maybe hidden, I guess, gay people, and you may not, unless you go on an app, know who they are because there isn't like a bar that you can go to or a very like the Pride Parade and the Pride weekends, we don't really have things like that here. So a lot of the people that I deal with, they could be gay, they could be trans or lesbian or cisgender, but because I'm just so focused on surfing and that feeling of surfing that I really don't care like you know, what your thing is. I just want to try and like be happy with the people in the water so that like it's not so aggro and it's more about that joy like that surfing gives you or wave riding gives you and stuff like that. I have had awesome, not saying the queer community hasn't helped me with things. Like I just finished up this awesome board with Dee Dee. Oh, I was just saying her name last night. She is Bosnian, so it's Hara Cici. Didi Harachichik.
Hmm.
She plays for Angel City Football Club, and she's a
Oh, I know
professional
exactly who
soccer.
you mean. Oh, wow.
Yeah, I just dropped it off with her and stuff, and she's been really awesome. She comes and photographs me, building boards, and she helped me make a video and stuff, making this typo with her and Shelly. Uh, I'm a horrible American that can't pronounce like foreign names. Um, uh, Gaidera, I think Shelly Gaidera. But she does Dream Team Surf Society here in LA. But I've also gotten awesome, stuff from people that aren't part of the queer community. So that's kind of why it's a little hard to just say that one helps me over the other. I really believe in the principle of aloha with surfing. And Rel Sun, who was Hawaii's first female lifeguard, she passed away from cancer many years ago. But she said that aloha was to give and give until you have no breath left to give. And so I've been very fortunate with a lot of people, whether queer or straight. For me, it's just about surfing. And if you like that and it makes you happy and you want to be happy in it, then you're for me.
Yeah, I think that's a really beautiful way to live in general, if you can. How do you strive to give back or foster that sense of belonging for others?
God will send me people that want to learn how to, right now, how I give back to other people is that I'll get people that want to learn how to shape or build their own boards. And because I work from home, I don't have to abide by the same like no non-employees in the business area. So like right now I have a couple of people, Olivia and Trooper. They're both really awesome. Trooper's been working with me, God, for probably coming up on a year in February. And Olivia just kind of started and they just come over whenever they can and I kind of show them what to do to shape, what kind of tools they need, how to glass, how to build their own boards and repair their own stuff. Because it can be hard like getting a job within the industry. It's like very still apprenticey, where one person will choose who they want to pass on their knowledge and take under their wing. It's not just a job that's, like open to anyone. It's still in that tradition of selection and stuff like that. One shaper will see something within someone else. And I mean, I guess I kind of do the same thing, but I try to do it to whoever just expresses interest and stuff. I've had a lot of people over that just wanted to learn, maybe even just for one board. And so I invite them over because I work at home and I can like, let them work. And then when they want to come back, they can work on it some more. And then, when they're done, they're done. And, they can either keep doing at it on their own elsewhere, or they can be like, not for me, but at least I tried it, kind of thing. It appears glamorous on Instagram and stuff like that for like a quick 15 seconds. But when you shape a board, even if you're a fast, proficient shaper, it'll still take you like 2 hours, and that's 2 hours of work in a room with, I'm not gonna lie, toxic foam and power tools and warm lights. And then when you go to glass it, like there's all these chemicals and it looks cool and stuff, but it is laborious work. But I've learned from this and like this sewing job that I had that if you just stick with it or anything, you can eventually teach yourself and be better at it. So at least if they don't stick with it in their mind, sometimes if you just tell yourself like, hey, I could totally do this, I could make a surfboard. Why couldn't I like assemble this IKEA furniture? It like if you start to tell yourself things like, oh, I could do that because I could do this. I mean, I may not be good at it at first, but like if I like it, I'll stick with it. And if I don't, then I learn something else. And it all like stacks up in these Lego brick kind of things that like you never know when something comes, and you're like, oh my God, like that taught like I didn't stick with that, but that totally came in handy here, kind of thing. I guess I try to give what I would want for myself, right? The golden rule, give unto others is you'd want them to do unto you and stuff. And if I didn't have a place like this, where, my parents helped me build these giant sheds in the back and they let me take over the yard. And like my dad has this classic truck that he like let me kind of take over and paint like my logo and stuff on the side. And my brother comes out and like he's learning how to do it and stuff. And he's really like I guess that's the biggest thing is I've seen how building boards, at least for me and the right person, and for my brother, how doing that, it really does change his life.
One thing that really stood out for me when you were talking there, and you were talking about the two people you're unofficially training, but your family are involved, your parents and your brother, you're bringing other people along with you. And like you said about people in the past, they've selected one person to train, but you've almost created a community around yourself and within it.
I guess, yeah. Um, I guess I just wanted to the community thing and the way I act isn't necessarily to build a community in a like thought or like an intentional thought. I just wanted to go out and the people in the surfing area probably know me as this crazy person that goes around and tells them and shows them a Polaroid picture and tells them that I got to meet God. And I have a picture of it. I even showed Alex from Butter. And and that's what led me to surfboard shaping was this whole crazy long story of meeting God and this number 55. I even have it tattooed on my arm. And people that I tell that believe me show me proof with that number. Like I told my friend Nick Tansky when he was getting ready to like go off to school, he was going to live in a van and stuff. And Nick's awesome. He's an awesome guy. He's super sweet. He's in his early 20s. He just graduated college, but he's like a 45-year-old man. Like he's so sensible. He's like so sweet to his mom and his sister. Like he friggin' when he sets goals, he like knocks them out. He just got done backpacking all over Nepal. He went up to Mount Everest, the base camp and stuff. He like went scuba diving with his mom in Thailand. He fucking backpacked the El Camino in Spain and stuff this last summer. And when he was here and I was helping him shape a board and he was getting ready to go to school, I was telling him about this guy that I believe is God. And I showed him his picture. And I had noticed that Nick's van had 55 on the license plate. Just, it's a random just number. And Nick believed me. He went out there and he looked at his car and he believed what I was saying. And when he came back from this trip in a winter break, he came over to hang out and he's like, I got you your Christmas present. And he's like, I'll be right back. Hold on. And he goes out in his car and he comes in. I'm in my sister's room and I'm sitting there and he comes in with a giant Speed 55 sign on it, like the kind here in America you see on the highway. And he said that he was driving on this trip up north, like up in Washington State, going up to Gig Harbor, the islands up there and stuff. And I was driving along and I told God, I want a sign for Ben that said speed 55, but not speed limit 55 because the limit makes the 55 smaller on the sign. And he came in, and here was this giant speed 55 sign. And he showed me a picture of where he found it in the middle of the backwoods on a two-lane highway. There was a post knocked over, like someone had hit it. And he spent an hour taking that sign off the post. He made the girl that he was with sit in the van while he
Oh
did this.
no.
Yeah.
Would you say that you're an advocate for inclusivity within the surfing world?
Yeah, I feel like with surfing in particular, that is a sport that holds no, there's women that go out and surf that giant 100-foot wave, and there are men that would be too terrified to. And there is men that surf very elegantly on a longboard, what you would probably call more feminine type, or just they're more elegant and stuff. So I feel like in surfing, there's nothing that really divides you. You can't, the ocean will mess anyone up. It doesn't matter. Like you could be 6'3" and get whomped on a 1-inch wave. You can be, like the ocean and nature in most parts, like things like backpacking or trail running or things like that, where you're involved with nature, you are more competing against nature, I feel, than other people because you could be like a surf contest, you could be out there, sets roll in, like the people in front of you get these really awesome like little nuggets or something like that. And then the wave you go for just like jacks up and you're in something totally unexpected. And it'll mess you up. So at least in surfing, I feel like there's no need to separate in things like that. Even age wise, I feel like in surfing, it's not and even just physically. Like there's a guy that I surf with sometimes. He's the head of Swami's surf club. His name's Shay Rooney. And Shay is tall, Shay is big. We like joke around and call him like the purple gorilla and stuff like that. And he is this huge guy. And he just fucking rocks it on like a board. And for being so big, the way he moves around on that thing and he just like cranks it and like he can get to the nose and he can do like so it has no bearing in that arena, at least I feel. Things like surfing, body surfing, um, boogie boarding, things of those nature, they're more like dance than a traditional sport where you can get points for things. Everything's subjective in surf contests. What one person thinks is good, another person might think is, not the style they're going for. So, like dance and things that are more of an artistic nature, to me, sometimes it's hard to gauge that, like who's better, who's worse. So like that I totally feel should just be kind of open and stuff. I do surf contests, uh, at least within my club. So my surf club, the Doheny Longboard Surfing Association, they're a part of a coalition of surf clubs. And these surf clubs throughout the year, whoever wants to will hold contests, and the other clubs come there and compete. It's more of a fun, like family weekend. Come hang out with your buddies from your club and you surf for 15 minutes and you get like a t-shirt. Like no one, there are professionals there that outside of this, and I'm sure probably these club contests weigh with points for them. So outside of this, they probably, it goes towards their bigger goal. But for the most part, a lot of the people there are just, everyday normal people that just want to come to a certain spot with their club and hang out and have some food on the beach and like, like what their parents might have done with them or that they had wished their parents had done with them. Who doesn't like hanging out at a Southern California beach for a weekend?
The footage and things I've seen of surfing in America just looks
You gotta
phenomenal.
come. Okay, so in England there is a group called Queer Surf. Uh,
Yeah, Fraser. I know Fraser.
yeah, yeah, you
Love
should go with
Fraser.
him.
I
Like,
think
have you ever gone with them?
I've gone to one meetup, but
Okay,
I have no sense of balance. So it's surfing's always quite low down on my list, but I have said to a few people I know from the club, I will start
yeah,
going to meets.
yeah. I mean, everyone. I mean, like, okay. The famous good people, they've been doing it for so long that like they don't even remember what it's like to be 12, but or 6 or however old they were when they started. But we all start like that. That's why going with older beginners is cool because they remember when they sucked. So they're not so much like, get out of my way, like the kids that don't know no better. They've just done this their whole life. You get an adult or someone else that like knows the struggle and they're like, okay, come on, I'm gonna help you out. Here's what I did when I did it. And that's why communities of any kind that you feel comfortable in are awesome because it provides like a sense of protection, which is humans being vulnerable and alone puts you, oh, you could be attacked or whatever. So finding a little tribe and stuff that you can like hang out with and like the same things you like. I'm sure if you do other hobbies, when you have friends that don't do those hobbies and you can't shut up about it, they're like, oh God, talking about knitting again or like, this or that. So when you're with these friends that do this stuff, you can like talk about it and it gets you excited and it like, it makes the little neurons in your brain like, woo. you know.
It is funny, especially as someone who's a climber as well, like when you're with another climber, when you get like really nerdy about rock types and like
Yeah.
holds on certain climbs, and people who aren't climbers are just looking at you like, what what are you talking about?
Yeah, right. Yeah, like different knots or shoe soles or different like, oh, well, this shoe has this kind of arch. This is my this shoe. This is my, these ropes are for this. And it's like, yeah, I know, yeah, you get all dorky. And then if you have a community and you can talk about that with them, then you kind of get it out. And then when you're with normal, not normal, but people that don't do that, you kind of get it out and they're like, oh, good, she stopped talking about that thing.
She stopped
Or
talking about touching rocks now.
yeah,
We
yeah,
can all
right.
move
Like she's
on.
a yeah, right. Like she talks about putting her fingers in these different holes and
My mom's just there shaking her head like, oh
and then someone's all tell me
God.
more. So no, it's good. Like but yeah, definitely try that. I mean, it is freezing where you guys live. I mean, at least for me, it's like so cold there.
Well, I swim year round. So this is
Oh,
actually my first, because I'm living in a city now, but I've swum like the last 10 winters and I just love cold
cool.
water and being actually the first time I went surfing was on the Isle of Barra up in the Scottish Outer
Oh
Hebrides.
God,
And
that sounds so cold.
it was I went with my friend Susie, who lives there and is a sea kayak guide, and I was wearing a wetsuit that was not my size, and I was on a board that hindsight was too long for me. And I
Okay.
pretty much just lay down the whole like I could catch a wave eventually, but I just lay down, but I didn't care that the kit
Yeah.
wasn't right for me because we were on this beach, the sun was setting and the sky was all moody. There was meant to be a storm that night, so the sky was like blue gray and with this like miles of golden sand. We were the only two people out on the water. And I didn't care that all I was doing was lying down on the board and just like getting these small waves, but I was just like,
Yeah.
it was the biggest buzz ever.
Yeah. No, I love that feeling. It's more that's why like so if you're fine swimming in the winter, maybe even body surfing might be good
Mm.
for you. That's where you just get fins and the little hand plane thing. I make belly boards out also out of broken surfboards, so like a boogie board, but I make them in different shapes and lengths and stuff like that. I go more for that glide, that buzz sensation you're talking about. You can get that anyway. You don't have to stand up. You can like, belly board, you can body surf. um, Sometimes at Blackie's in Newport, when it's too small to actually like body surf, I'll go under the water and then right as the waves come, do like a dolphin kick and stuff, and you get going like dolphins and stuff, and that's the same like, sensation and all. So that's more what I go for is that glide.
It's
So
just that pure joy of, whether you find it in the water or on rock or when you're on a bike. I just think I crave it so much, and especially when, as a queer person, the world feels heavy, coming outs of stress, the awful political state of the vast majority of the world, like just having these moments of flow and being able to
yeah.
play with your friends are so vital.
Yeah. Because it keeps you in the moment and you can't think about anything else, because you either I'm sure it's like when you're riding a bike, if you aren't paying attention you'll eat it, right? I'm sure when you're rock climbing, you might miss a hold if you're thinking about something else. It's all this like being truly in the moment, not able to think about other things even if you want to, that like is what people like of whatever they choose. For me, I've done quite a few other things. Like I've tried rock climbing, like bouldering, and I've gone hiking and stuff. And I used to bike commute. And at least for me, I heard in your first podcast with Nikki Smith that you have done sailing and stuff like that. So for me, at least, there is this element of an unseen energy that's in the ocean. And that is what I'm going for, is that connection. Because in the physical sense of how a wave works, it's this energy that's generated through earthquakes or storms or like just wind, that's generating out in the ocean and stuff. And it travels all this distance, this energy. It's not even really the water moving, it's the energy underneath. And when it gets to its end, like its final moments of life, if you're riding it, it's final moments of like joy because you're happy and like, and even I listened to this YouTube interview with Mike Doyle, who is a famous waterman. He was the first also Iron Man. So he was the very first man to do the swim, bike, triathlon crap. He also swam the coast of Kauai. Him and a friend like started at one point, swam out, swam all day until they were hungry. Then they would go in, find somewhere on the coast that they could sit and eat and then or sleep, and then come back out in the water and just swam the whole coast. So he's a total waterman. And he talked about how he knew Timothy Leary, the guy that invented acid. And he had said that Timothy had asked him if when he's out in the water, if he feels this like electric charge in the water when he's surfing or anything like that. And he's like, yeah, I totally do and stuff. And Timothy had told him how that is actual ions of energy
Mm.
swirling in that crest of the waves. So when you're in there, you feel this energy of the universe that has traveled all this distance, even further than we can conceive because of how things are created in space. And then it comes, the sun's heat warms things up, it makes wind, the winds combining with another wind makes storms and all this stuff. And so in the end, you get to ride this like energy of the universe. And it is absolutely like nothing you'll feel anywhere else. Rock climbing, I'm sure it's good and cool and stuff, but that rock isn't alive. It's not different. It doesn't have moods. It doesn't depend on the season or the day or the tide or the wind or any of this. Like all these factors come into play to make this like perfect day of surfing. And that's why surfers usually can't have normal jobs because it interrupts with their surfing. How are they going to be working when the fucking swell's good at 2 o'clock and you're scheduled to be working at 2? You can't. So, like, a lot of surfers will try and do jobs that allow them to feed this addiction to the universal energy force. And, like, that's why I brought up sailing. You've gone out there, so you feel the energy of, like, I'm sure
Mm.
you've been on a boat out. I don't know how far you've gone out, at least I know this from sitting on the shore. You can be out there sometimes and the swell is really big and really good. And this wave that's not ready to break yet just comes like flowing past you. And you can feel the thickness of the energy in it. Sometimes they're like little and narrow and it's just like a little whoop, but sometimes you can just feel and you like at least surfing when it's big. I don't surf big. For me like 5 foot is big because I am 5'2", so anything past that is terrifying. So but there have been days where I've been at Sano and like that's the other thing is just getting out into the lineup can be a battle. It would be like if you go rock climbing, but on the way to your rock climbing spot, there's all these other boulders rolling down at you, coming and stuff like that. And they may like come off a cliff, like right in front of you or right on you. And you have to like go through it and get out there. And you can't even like stop and think. When I was trying to teach my sister to surf, she she would while we're trying to paddle out, she was friggin' brave. She just followed us and like went and she just fucking like, you know, just balls out went for it and stuff. And she's not like a water person. Like I grew up in the water. I was learning to swim before I could walk. I don't know why. No one else in my family is a water person. I've never seen my dad swim. My mom is very Caucasian. She's mostly German and Scottish and Irish, so she's very European. So she doesn't go outside much because skin cancer. And like my brother just recently started getting into water stuff and he's in his 40s. So the reason why I was learning to surf before I could walk, I have no idea. It's like a mystery. But she would be like, what do I need to do? Where do I need to be on the board? And it's like big and at Doheny, when the waves get big and break out on the second reef, even the whitewash can be big, like
Mm.
just these big plumes and just. And she's like, "Oh, what do I do?" And I'm like, "Just paddle. Like, you just don't, yeah, just get outside. Like, don't ask, just go. Like it can be like a war zone. And there have been times like where I'll get out there and you're just trying to get out there and not get crushed on or sucked over the falls. And you're sitting out there and you see the sets just still coming and stuff. And like at Sano, there's been times where like I'll be sitting out there and you'll see this wave coming and then you see it jack up and then you see it arch and then you hear this like a monster, just like whoa, like go over and you see like the stuff spit out and you're like, oh Jesus, how am I gonna get back in? Because like it's like, oh, this is way past my pay grade. I shouldn't be out here. I'm an idiot. And now I'm out here, but I'm too scared to ride a wave in. And the waves are just marching in that there's no break. And sometimes, like, you won't even see how far you paddle out. At least at Sano, like, sometimes when it gets big, you won't even see how far you paddle out from the shore because you're just trying not to get killed by the waves or you're bored or hit by someone coming down the line or shit like that. And then you get out there where you can take a break and you turn around, you look back, and everything's really little and you're like, oh no. How am I gonna get out of here? Because if I try to paddle in, the waves are just coming, 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 that like I'll have to catch a wave or I'll be in the wrong spot and like it'll just crush me and stuff. So like you definitely have to face fear, I feel like a lot too when you're surfing, because it's also this element that you're in no control of. It's a dynamic, non-static, moving, living, and as the time goes on while you're out there, the tide can change, it can get better, it can get worse, it can get way worse, and so um it's just this whole different element that I feel you can't find anywhere else unless you are in the ocean. It is a totally different element of its own, this totally living, breathing sort of like thing. And so yeah. But definitely join the community. Long story short, join the community. Yeah. They're awesome folks. They've been going for a long while, and it'll just get you out there more. And
Mm.
when people are counting on you to be there, then you can't make excuses because you're like, oh,
Yeah,
well,
that is true.
Joe's waiting for, and usually you might have talked yourself out of it without someone, excuse me. But with someone, if you keep doing it, then they'll stop asking you, and then you're like, oh, why am I just this bum all alone and stuff? And it's all because you don't go do anything. Have you seen that movie Yes Man with Jim Carrey?
No.
Okay, it's a good movie. It's very funny, but same thing. He didn't want to. I mean, he was going through a divorce in the movie and stuff, but he didn't want to go and do stuff because he was very depressed. And after a while, his friends were like, "Why? You won't even be there and stuff." And then, like, you might like it. It's pretty funny. It's definitely a like encourages you to try new things, sort
Mm.
of story basis. So it's got Zoe. I can't pronounce her last name, but she does music and she was a pretty big actress for a short window, did a lot of indie films and stuff like that. So,
Nice.
um, but yeah.
One thing that stood out to me from reading various interviews that you've done and your overall journey, I don't like to use that word, but journey, is your humility in the face of failure. And everything we've just spoken about definitely demonstrates that surfing inherently teaches you to accept failing and falling. And I imagine that's a similar mindset when creating something with your hands, like shaping surfboards. How has your relationship with failure, both in surfing and your craft, shaped your growth and perspective?
Oh, failing is everything. Because not that you want to continue to fail, but without failing, you won't learn new things. You'll stay in your comfort zone. You'll never try something new because we'll all fail in the beginning, like I learned that a lot from jujitsu and stuff. My professor will always push us to try new stuff, and you're gonna fail and you're gonna get smashed and you're gonna probably get arm barred or they're gonna pull something else on you, but you will never learn it if you don't do it and stuff. And so a lot what helped with that was I gotten this sewing job probably like 4 years ago now. I still go to it sometimes. It's a sewing shop in Newport Beach. They make custom flags by hand. So like we'll get a design order and then using a sewing machine, we applicate the design on. Well, when I had first started at that job, I didn't really have anyone to teach me. So I had to learn on my own. And having a job where I couldn't just throw something away because I'm like, like you can when you do it yourself, you're like, oh, fuck this. I'm never going to do this again. Meh, whatever. When you're there and I really needed a job, I really needed this job and stuff. And so, like, when I would fail, I didn't have the opportunity or the chance to be like, fuck this, because a client is waiting on it. I also didn't have time to sit there and lollygag on what to do because now I had the same amount of work to do again, but in a shorter amount of time. So it taught me like to decisively make a decision. Like, this is screwed. How are we going to fix it? Or we need to get started again and do it now and not like waste time because you don't have time. So when I started building surfboards, because I taught myself mostly, I would watch videos on YouTube. Tanner Bendheim on YouTube. He has a very popular shaping YouTube channel. He doesn't talk, but he did a lot of video, so you could see him and stuff like that. And there were people I met on Instagram, like Michael Soleil, and just other background builders. If I had questions, I could ask them, but they weren't here to show me or help me. So, and they would describe it as best they could through text or whatever, but pretty much I would just have to do it and then fail and then be like, fuck, how am I going to fix this? And either start over again, like at the sewing shop, or get into fixing it. But either way, it made me like realize, not to dick around. So I'd say that's the biggest thing from doing anything on your own. If you want to stick with it, when you make mistakes, especially when you have people waiting for an order, you have to be like, okay, how am I going to fix this? Because I have a deadline still that I need to push and do. So, yeah, but totally success helps because it, you know, reinforces and encourages in your mind, like, yeah, that was good. Like, good reinforcement's better than bad reinforcement, but you still need the failures to get to that success.
Sadly, we have run out of time, and I feel like we could go on talking for ages. But
Yeah.
lastly, if people want to find you online, where can they look you up?
You can find me on Instagram either under my personal account of at Ben Soto, Soto photo, Photo, or you can find the shaping business I do with my brother at Soto Surfcraft on Instagram. And we have a website at www.sotosurfcraft.com.